good defending and really good attacking, so he has to continue to play like that.
Ruben Amorim has only been in charge for 4 games, and it already feels like he's about to light the Premier League on fire. But the real buzz? It's all about how he's brought back Rashford 2.0. 3 goals in 4 games. Rashford looks reborn. So what's Amorim's secret? How has Rashford seized this opportunity to turn himself into a star again? Let's talk about that. But before we get to the present, we need to rewind a bit to that incredible 30-goal season he had not too long ago. Understanding why Rashford thrived back then is the key to figuring out how he can make this season just as unforgettable.
We've got so many different personnels, different players that can play in different positions. We can change a lot in games and set up differently for different games. So it's, like I said, it's exciting. And don't want to get too carried away, but like I said earlier, the energy and atmosphere is what we want from Old Trafford.
Remember when Erik ten Hag first walked through the doors at Old Trafford? The guy was on a mission to sort out the mess, and one of the first things he did was figure out how to get the best out of Marcus Rashford. And boy, did it work.
And he just always says to me, you've got 95 minutes, all you need is one chance, and you have to take that one chance. It's nice to have a manager that's, you know, so focused on just every detail, and you know, he wants to push himself to be the very best, which ultimately pushes the players and the team to be as best as we can be. And
Rashford was on fire that season. He scored over 30 goals in all competitions, his best season ever. This was the Marcus Rashford we all knew was in there somewhere, but hadn't seen consistently for a while. It felt like every time he got the ball, you were expecting something magical to happen, and more often than not, it did. But how did Ten Hag pull it off? First of all, the guy's a tactical genius. He didn't just throw Rashford out and hope for the best. He built the attack around him. Rashford's pace, his ability to cut inside, and his knack for scoring in big moments made him the focal point of United's attack.
I notified that from the start his heading has to improve, and he worked on it, and you see what's happening.
One thing that stood out was how Ten Hag tweaked the formation to suit Rashford. Sometimes he was out on the left wing, where he could drive at defenders and cut inside onto his right foot. But here's the clever bit. Ten Hag also used him centrally at times. By doing that, he put Rashford in positions where he was closer to goal, making it easier for him to score. Remember those late runs into the box? Pure gold. And then there was the high press. Ten Hag had the whole team pressing aggressively, which created so many opportunities for Rashford to pounce on mistakes. He didn't have to drop deep to get the ball anymore. He was right there, ready to take advantage. Let's not forget the confidence factor. Before Ten Hag, Rashford looked like a guy carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. But under Ten Hag, he was smiling again. You could tell he was enjoying his football, and that made all the difference. It wasn't just the goals either. Rashford was making things happen, whether it was a ridiculous solo run, a perfectly timed pass, or just the way he kept defenders on their toes. He was unplayable at times. It was like every game you'd think, what's he going to do next? That season wasn't just a turning point for Rashford, it was a statement. A reminder to everyone who had doubted him that he wasn't just a good player, he was a great one. And let's be honest, it felt pretty amazing to see him shutting down the critics with every goal, right? But here's the thing about football, it doesn't stay perfect forever. And while Rashford was flying high that season, the challenges were just around the corner. First off, Rashford was not playing like the guy we saw the season before. Suddenly all the magic and confidence, it just wasn't there. It's like he went from Superman to Clark Kent overnight. And as fans, it was frustrating because you knew he had it in him, but for some reason he just couldn't turn it on. Now, this wasn't all on Rashford. A lot of it came down to how Ten Hag adjusted the tactics. Remember how he used to get Rashford into central positions where he could cause chaos? Well, not so much anymore. Instead, Rashford found himself drifting out wider, almost hugging the touchline at times. This was due to the signing of Højlund. And let's be real, Rashford is not a stand on the sideline and whipping crosses kind of player. And then there was Garnacho. Don't get me wrong, Garnacho is a serious talent, but it felt like Ten Hag started favouring him in certain games, pushing Rashford even further out of the picture. It's like Rashford went from being the main man to just another option on the team sheet. That's gotta mess with your rhythm, right? The biggest issue though was that Rashford wasn't getting the chances he needed. When you're playing further from the goal, you're not in those dangerous positions where you can make things happen. Instead, he was spending more time trying to beat 2 or 3 defenders just to get into the box. It's no wonder his confidence took a hit. Now let's not forget the mental side of things. Rashford is one of those players who thrives on confidence. When he's flying, he's unstoppable. But when he's doubting himself, he shows. The body language wasn't the same. He looked frustrated, like he was overthinking every move. You could see it in the way he played. Hesitant, unsure, almost like he was trying to force it instead of just letting it flow. And as much as we love to analyze tactics and stats, sometimes football is simple. If you're not enjoying yourself on the pitch, you're not going to play well. And that's what it felt like with Rashford during that season. He wasn't enjoying himself, but this season seems to be different. Before we continue the video, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and help us get to our goal of hitting 20k before the end of the year. Thank you, and now back to the video. This season also started really bad for Marcus Rashford, and they had been discussions on whether he would be sold or not come this summer. But then Ruben Amorim came in as manager, and suddenly Rashford's out here playing like he's the main character in a football anime. Unstoppable, unpredictable, and lethal, with Ahmad of course. So what changed? Let's break it down. First off, let's talk about positioning. Under Amorim, Rashford isn't stuck playing as a traditional striker, where he's battling centre-backs all game and not getting to do his thing. He isn't banished to the wings, where he's stranded waiting for something to happen. Amorim took one look at him and said, "You're not just fast, you're a nightmare for defenders. Let's make you the tip of the spear." Now Rashford is playing as an inverted forward in a 3-4-3 setup. It sounds tactical, right? Rashford gets to cut inside, exploit space, and attack from positions where defenders can't pin him down. The genius? Well, he's not doing it alone. Amorim paired him with Joshua Zirkzee, who's playing the deep-lying forward role. Zirkzee doesn't just sit up top waiting to score, he drops deeper, almost like a playmaker. This movement pulls defenders out of position, leaving massive gaps for Rashford to run into. And let's be real, when Rashford has space to run into, he's unstoppable. You can see the confidence oozing out of him. It's not just his pace, it's the timing of his runs, the way he angles his body, and the directness of his attacks. In the 4-0 thrashing of Everton, Rashford looked like he was on a mission. Every run he made screamed, "Give me the ball and I'll make magic happen." But there's more to this than just positioning. Amorim has created a system where Rashford can trust his teammates to do their part. Amad Diallo, for example, is pressing high and creating turnovers that turn into quick attacks. Kobe Mainoo? That kid is linking up beautifully with Rashford, setting him up to explode down the left or cut inside. And then there's Bruno Fernandes, floating in that half space, feeding passes into Rashford's path like it's second nature. Amorim's tactics aren't just about making Rashford run. They're about giving him the tools and freedom to dominate. And the best part? Rashford knows it's working. In interviews, he's been talking about connections, not just with the manager, but with the players around him. That's not just a buzzword. You can see it in the way he's playing. He knows exactly where his teammates are, and they know how to feed him the ball at the perfect moment. So Amorim's go-to setup is the 3-4-3, but here's the twist. It's not rigid. It's more like a shapeshifter, evolving mid-game based on what's needed. The most exciting part? The attacking three which Rashford thrives in. In this system, Rashford isn't stuck waiting for something to happen. He's constantly moving, finding spaces between defenders, and making darting runs. Joshua Zirkzee plays a central role but drops deeper to link up with the midfield, pulling defenders with him. This creates gaps for Rashford to exploit. It's like Amorim handed Rashford a roadmap to every defensive weak spot and said, "Go have fun." Here's where it gets even smarter. Amorim's system isn't locked into one formation. In certain phases of the game, the 3-4-3 morphs into a 4-4-2. This subtle tweak might not look like much, but it's game-changing for Rashford. One of the biggest reasons Rashford is flourishing is because he's got the right players around him. Bruno Fernandes has been pivotal, operating in the spaces behind Rashford and threading those killer passes. Joshua Zirkzee, despite not being the most prolific scorer, plays his role to perfection, acting as a link between the midfield and attack. Even the wing-backs are getting in on the action. Players like Diogo Dalot and Amad Diallo push high up the field, stretching the opposition and giving Rashford the room to operate. It's like everyone's working together to make sure Rashford gets the ball in the best possible position. Even when the team shifts to a 4-4-2, Rashford often finds himself with even more freedom to drift into central spaces. This keeps defenders guessing. Do they follow him or hold their position? Either way, it creates chaos, and Rashford is thriving on that unpredictability. The difference now? It's confidence. Rashford isn't second-guessing himself anymore. He's not wondering if a pass will reach him or if he'll have to force a chance. He knows that Amorim's system is built for him to succeed, and that trust is unlocking the best version of him we've seen in years. So yeah, it isn't just a Rashford resurgence, it's a full-on transformation. Ruben Amorim didn't just unleash Rashford, he gave him a system, a purpose, and a license to kill defenses. And the scariest part? This is just the beginning. But the main question is if he can keep improving. And what does he need to do to keep improving? First off, let's talk consistency. This has been the thing with Rashford, hasn't it? He's either red hot scoring for fun or having those games where you barely notice he's on the pitch. Like in the Everton game, he was everywhere. But when he came on in the Arsenal game, he was non-existent. If he wants to hit those world-class levels we all know he's capable of, he's got to figure out how to make his A game show up every single week. And this isn't just about him. It's about how he works with the team. Have you noticed how much better he plays when there's a false striker up front? Like with Zirkzee, who's making those smart runs and dragging defenders all over. Rashford has to keep building that chemistry. The more they click, the more space Rashford will have to do his thing. Now let's talk about decision making. I'm sure you've had those moments watching him when you're screaming at the TV, "Just shoot already!" or "Pass it, man!" Yeah, me too actually. Well, Rashford's got the skills, no doubt, but sometimes he takes one touch too many, or picks the wrong option in the final third. If he sharpens up that decision making, especially in those split-second moments, he's going to be deadly. Oh, and let's not forget about his weaker foot. I know, it's not terrible, but it's also not great. Defenders know if they can block his right foot, they've got a decent chance of shutting him down. If Rashford can develop that left foot, even just a little more, he'll be so much harder to defend against. Imagine him cutting in from the left and banging one with his left foot. It's terrifying for defenders and beautiful for us. Another thing Rashford needs to double down on is his off-the-ball movement. He's been great at timing those runs lately, especially with Amorim's system, but there's still room to improve. The best forwards in the world, think Haaland and Mbappe, they're always on the move, always thinking one step ahead. If Rashford can take a page out of their book, he'll find himself in even better positions to score. And let's not ignore the mental side. Confidence is huge for Rashford. When he's feeling good, he's unstoppable. But when things aren't going his way, it's easy to see him get in his head. He's got to keep that swagger, even during the tougher spells. Amorim seems to have helped him get some of that back, but it's on Rashford now to carry it through the whole season. Finally, fitness. Rashford's had his fair share of injuries in the past, and staying healthy is going to be key if he wants to maintain this level. If he can keep himself in top physical condition, that alone is going to give him a huge edge. So can Rashford replicate his best season? Well, absolutely. Can he even surpass it? Well, honestly, yeah, why not? He's got all the tools, a system that suits him, and now the momentum. It's up to him to put it all together. And if he does, we're talking about one of the best seasons of his career, no question. Well, what do you think? Would he have a blast this season, or would he still be the same bad Rashford? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to check out our last video on how Rodri is the cause of Manchester City's downfall.